to flock to that home. Well, joining us now from Cape Town is a former President, FW de Klerk. Mr. de Klerk, thank you for joining us this morning. I have to ask you, what were your feelings the moment you heard the news that Madiba had passed on?
I and my wife were deeply sad. In our hearts, we reached out to Graça Machel, who is a good friend, as the late President Mandela was a good personal friend of us. We are thinking of her and of the whole Mandela family, and we are holding them in our prayers. It's a sad moment for the country and all its people. But it's also a moment, I think, to celebrate the life of this very special man and to remember his legacy. And I regard his main legacy as his emphasis and focus which he had on the need for reconciliation, on the need for upholding human rights, on the needs for promoting equality. And all these values which he stood for are encapsulated in our negotiated constitution. I think the best way to pay tribute to him is to uphold this constitution and to make it a living document, because by doing that, the very values for which he stood will become the values of our society.
Mr. de Klerk, you first met with Nelson Mandela in 1989. You shared the Nobel Peace Prize with him in 1993. As a man, how do you remember him? Not as a politician or a leader, but as a man, how will you remember him?
I remember him as a man with great magnanimity, with great warmth, who really took an interest in people around him, who made you feel comfortable whenever you were in his presence. I remember him as a man with a great sense of humor. I remember him as a very human person, full of warmth. The way when we had a debate in the election in 1994, in which he took my hand afterwards and said, but notwithstanding our differences, we will walk the road together and we need to work together. That is an example of his warmth and his tremendous charm.
And what would you say was the greatest lesson he taught you, Mr. de Klerk?
I think the greatest lesson he taught me was to be honest, to show integrity, to be open and transparent, to look your opponent in the eye and to try and find common cause for the sake of the cause for which you stand.
And as we've been hearing since we heard of Madiba's death last night, people are mourning, but they are also celebrating his life. What should South Africa take from this great man as he leaves us now?
As I've said, I think what we should take from his life is the need for South Africans to take hands, to work together, is to heed his message that never and never again should there be in South Africa the suppression of any one of another, that we should work together as a nation, irrespective of race or color or political orientation, in order to fulfill the tremendous potential which this country has.
Thank you very much, former President FW de Klerk, live from our Cape Town studios.